5 years ago, I was the guy in the leased BMW. I pulled into a Whole Foods parking lot in Austin, parked next to a beat-up Toyota Corolla, and walked into the store feeling like I had made it. The guy who got out of that Corolla turned out to be a software founder. He had sold his first company in his 20s, his second in his 30s, and at 41 years old, he was casually buying organic almond butter in a pair of jeans that cost less than my belt. I had a leased BMW, a closet full of brands, and about $300 in my checking account. That morning is when I started paying attention. My name is Ryan, and what I am about to share is not theory I read about in a personal finance book. It is what I have learned watching how Americans actually perform wealth versus how Americans quietly build it. I have made every mistake on this list. Some of them I made for years before I noticed what they were costing me. The thing nobody tells you about looking rich is that the rules changed about 5 years ago. The truly wealthy figured out that visible logos and loud cars made them look like they were trying. So they started dressing in unbranded cashmere. They started driving cars without badges. They started saying less, posting less, and explaining less, and while they quietly upgraded their game, an entire generation of us, including past Ryan, got stuck running the old playbook. Louder, more desperate, more visible, and more broke than we were willing to admit. So here are 10 signs that someone is fake, rich. I will show you the patterns. I will show you the math. And I will show you what the people with actual money are doing instead. Some of these are going to sound familiar. That is the point. You do not have to be ashamed of seeing yourself in one or two. You just have to be honest about it. That is how this stops costing you. 1. The entry-level luxury trap. The first sign is buying the cheapest item from the most expensive brand. Walk into any luxury store in Beverly Hills or down on Madison Avenue and look at what sells fastest. It is not the $8,000 coat. It is the $400 keychain, the card holder, the perfume sample, the makeup pouch, the canvas tote that costs more than most people's rent. The brand calls these accessible luxury. I call them gateway drugs. I had a girlfriend in college who saved for 6 months to buy a designer wallet. It cost almost a full month of her rent. When she finally got it, she carried it everywhere. To parties, to the gym, to the grocery store, except when she came over to my apartment with her actual close friends. Those nights, she would quietly pull out the old wallet she had carried since high school. I asked her about it once. She said, "With strangers, I need the logo. With friends, I do not have to perform." I think about that line constantly. Here is what is actually happening at the cash register. Entry-level luxury has the worst price-to-value ratio in retail. You are paying a brand premium of several $100% for an item that, without the logo, would sell for a fraction of the price. The leather is thinner than the flagship product. The construction is faster. The stitching is rougher. You are not buying craftsmanship. You are buying the right to be seen, carrying the logo. Psychologists call this conspicuous consumption. Buying things specifically to signal status to others, and the cheaper the item from an expensive brand, the more naked the signaling becomes. A $400 keychain has no other purpose. It is a flag. People with real money rarely buy entry-level luxury. If they want a wallet, they either buy something genuinely well-made from an independent maker, or they buy the actual flagship piece because they want the object, not the signal. The middle ground is almost exclusively a fake rich move. Full. Constant money talk. The second sign is that money keeps showing up in conversations where it does not belong. Listen carefully. The next time you are around someone who fits this pattern, they do not just talk about money. They smuggle it into every topic. You ask how their weekend was, and somehow the answer includes what dinner cost. You mention a movie, and they tell you they watched it from a private screening room. They mention brands when brands were not relevant. They reference prices when prices were not asked. I had a coffee meeting in San Francisco last year with a guy I was thinking about doing business with. Over 45 minutes. He mentioned the cost of his parking spot, the brand of his watch, what his last vacation cost per night, the price per square foot of his apartment, and the gym membership tier he was on. None of it was asked about. None of it was relevant. All of it was inserted into other conversations like footnotes nobody requested. I did not end up doing business with him. Not because I judged him for having money, but because I could not trust that he was telling me anything for any reason other than impression. This pattern has a hidden tax that the speaker rarely sees. It erodes trust. People stop sharing real news with them because every conversation gets hijacked. Friendships thin out. Invitations stop coming. The person who needs everyone to know how well they are doing ends up surrounded by people who are quietly distancing themselves. Constant money talk is rarely about money. It is about reassurance. Each mention is a small attempt to confirm, I am doing well, right? Tell me I am doing well. It is a form of public self-soothing. People with real wealth are often boring about money. They might mention it when it is relevant, a tax change, a market event, an actual investment topic, but they do not smuggle it in. Their identity is not built on financial signaling, so they do not need every conversation to reinforce it. 3. Designer items exceeding savings. The third sign is the wardrobe worth more than the bank account. This one is harder to spot from the outside, but the math is brutal once it is visible. The handbag is worth more than 3 months of rent. The watch costs more than the emergency fund. The shoes lined up in the closet would cover a small car, and underneath all of it, the savings account has less in it than what is hanging from one shoulder. When the pandemic hit, and a lot of Americans suddenly needed cash, the resale market for luxury goods exploded. Platforms like The RealReal and Vestiaire Collective saw their inventory spike. Items people had spent years acquiring, bags, watches, jewelry, flooded the secondhand market at heavy discounts. The reason was not always that owners wanted to downsize. A lot of them were liquidating because they had no other liquidity. The performance had been their savings account. I watched a friend go through this. She had spent 6 years curating what she called her investment wardrobe, handbags she had been told would appreciate when her job ended and her unemployment ran out. She sold the whole closet in 3 weeks. At a loss she did not want to talk about. Luxury goods are not investments for most people. The resale value drops the moment they leave the store. Even items marketed as appreciating, certain watches, limited bags, only hold value if you can prove provenance, store them perfectly, and find the right buyer. For the average owner, that bag sells for less than they paid every single time. The wardrobe richer than account pattern comes from a specific belief that the right item will unlock a different life. That if you look the part will come to you. Sometimes it does. Usually it does not. But the belief is strong enough to keep buying, strong enough to override the math that should have stopped the purchase. Truly, Wealthy people rarely have items worth more than meaningful assets they own. Their luxury goods are a tiny fraction of their net worth. They buy what they want, when they want it, but the purchase never endangers anything else. 4. The constant one-upper. The fourth sign is the person who cannot let anyone else have a moment. You share good news. Their good news appears within 90 seconds. You mention a trip. They mention a better one. You describe a meal. They describe a more expensive restaurant. You celebrate a small win, and they produce a larger win they had not mentioned until just now. Conveniently, I watched this play out at a promotion dinner here in New York. A friend told the table she had been promoted to manager, her first big career step. Before anyone could finish congratulating her, someone in the group said, "That is great. I was actually promoted to director last quarter, but I did not want to make a big deal about it." The room went quiet. The conversation shifted. The original news vanished. She told me later that she stopped sharing good news at group dinners after that night. She still tells me her wins, but only one-on-one. The group has lost her honesty. One-uppers do not realize what they are destroying. They think they are contributing. What they are actually doing is teaching everyone around them not to share. The cost is invisible to the one-upper, but devastating to the relationships. Every gathering becomes a competition nobody else signed up for. And over years, people quietly start declining the invitations. One-upping is almost always a defense mechanism. The one-upper feels small when others succeed. So they reach for something, anything, that restores them to a position of superiority. The reflex happens before they think about it. They are not trying to be unkind. They are trying to survive a moment where someone else got the attention. People secure in their lives can sit with someone else's success without flinching. They congratulate. They ask questions. They are happy for the other person, fully, with no performance underneath it. This is one of the clearest behavioral signals of who actually has things going well. And it has nothing to do with money. 5. Social media performance. The fifth sign is a feed that looks like an advertisement. Open their Instagram. Scroll through the last 20 posts. Notice how many feature a luxury object, a luxury location, a luxury meal, or a body-flexing luxury combination. Notice how rarely you see anything mundane. Notice how each photo feels staged, lit, and captioned to communicate something more than, "This happened today." A growing industry exists specifically to help Americans fake luxury lifestyles for social media. There are studios in Los Angeles and Miami that rent grounded private jet interiors by the hour. They never leave the tarmac. There are artificial intelligence tools that can put you in front of any luxury car, any infinity pool, any Dubai rooftop, without you ever leaving your apartment in Queens. The supply of fake luxury photos has outpaced the supply of actual luxury experiences. Performing wealth on social media does not just cost money, it costs attention. Every lifestyle post requires planning, staging, lighting, editing, captioning, and responding to comments. That time and mental energy does not go toward building anything real. It goes toward maintaining an audience that, honestly, mostly does not care. This is driven by what psychologists call social comparison theory, the human tendency to evaluate ourselves by comparing to others.